Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 11 o'clock, the official start of Veterans Day, dating back to this very moment in time, 103 years ago, the signing of an armistice that ended World War I. So we will now begin with our opening prayer, given to us by a long-standing member of our Attleboro American Legion, Mr. Don Vandal.
You can see he's taller than I am. Thank you. Lord, you know how deep a warrior's wounds go. You know the loss that many of us veterans in body and soul. You know the memories that haven't them and the scar that many of them continue to carry. Please bring healing to those veterans who still hurt. Please grant them patience and wisdom to those around them who cannot understand but can sometimes help the healing process. Please apply both natural and supernatural medicine to their wounds. Reward them richly for all they have given. Amen.
Thank you, Don. I will now ask members of our American Legion and VFW to please post the colors.
Left turn. Forward march. I will now call forth the Girl Scouts to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. This will be followed by a lovely rendition from the Attleboro High School Choir.
Now, we will individually post the colors of the different branches of the armed services. As this is done, our choir will treat us to each of the service songs. Born June 14th, 1775, the United States Army.
First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along. Then it's hi, hi, hey, the army's on its way. Count off the cadence loud and strong. For where'er we go, we will always know that the army goes rolling along.
Born October 13th, 1775, the United States Navy.
Anchors away, my boys, anchors away. Farewell to college joys, we sail at break of day. Through our last night on shore, drink to the full, until we meet once more. Here's wishing you a happy voyage home.
Born November 10th, 1775, the United States Marine Corps.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles from the air, on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marine.
Born August 4th, 1790, the United States Coast Guard.
We're always ready for the call. We place our trust in thee. Through surf and storm and howling gale, high shall our purpose be. Semper Paratus is our guide, our fame, our glory too. To fight, to save, or fight and die, High Coast Guard, we are for you.
Born September 18th, 1947, the United States Air Force.
Off we go into the wide blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here we come, soon to meet our thunder. Captain boys, give her the gun. Down we dive, spouting our flame from under. Off with one hell of a roar. We live in fame or go down in flame. Hey, nothing will stop the U.S. Air Force.
Now, before we go any further, I want to point out that today is a day off from school, yet our high school choir was nice enough to come out here and treat us to those lovely renditions, so we can please put our hands together for our Girl Scouts and our choir. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, I also noticed we have the Merchant Marines with us here today. Now, to officially kick this off, I'd like to invite up our highest elected official, our mayor, the Honorable Paul Heroux, who will read the official 2021 Commonwealth of Massachusetts Veterans Day Proclamation.
Morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here with all of you this morning, and I think year after year we luck out with the weather. You know, this couldn't be a nicer day. Veterans Day is a day that we can all come together and appreciate the service of our veterans, both past and current, also our future veterans as well. Biggest mistake I ever made was not serving when I had the chance. I wish I had, because I have a lot of friends who did so, and the stories they tell and the experiences they had and the way it made them a better person or better people. I wish I had participated when I had the chance. So for everybody who is here who is young, if you want to give a few years of your life of service, I highly encourage you to do so. So this is a proclamation from the governor's office, and it's the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, a proclamation. And whereas, since the Commonwealth's colonial days, thousands of men and women have served our country in defense of freedom and liberty, and whereas on November 11th, 1918, the armistice was signed in the forest of Compiègne, it's very small, by the Allied nations and Germany, ending World War I, the war to end all wars, after 4 years of conflict. And whereas since that day, every November, people from around the nation have gathered to honor our veterans, and whereas there are approximately 388,000 veterans living in Massachusetts, and whereas today we are reminded of the great sacrifices and contributions of our veterans have made to our country, and whereas we honor and salute those who served our country throughout the generations with honor, patriotism, and courage. And whereas it is appropriate that all Massachusetts citizens remember the bravery of those who served their country, so that their dedication and sacrifices serve as a reminder to the cost of our freedom. And whereas in November 2021, the world will commemorate the 103rd anniversary of the armistice that ended the fighting of World War I at 11 a.m., November 11th, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Now, therefore, I, Charles D. Baker, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim November 11th, 2021, Veterans Day, and urge all of the citizens of the Commonwealth to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. Given at the Executive Chamber in Boston this 11th day of November in the year of 2021, and in the independence of the United States of America, the 245th, by His Excellency Charles D. Baker, Governor of the Commonwealth, and Karen Pouliot, Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth, and the William Francis Galvin, Secretary of the Commonwealth. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Thank you.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, 70 years ago, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed what many historians consider the greatest social legislation ever passed by the U.S. Congress. As popular as the GI Bill remains today, it took the horrific cost and bloodshed of World War II to remind many Americans just how great a debt is owed to our veterans. Roosevelt would later provide himself to be a great wartime commander-in-chief. What he and others failed to realize at the time is that veterans were not asking to be part of a special class. They just wanted a shot at the American dream that they fought so hard to defend. Most Americans profess to truly love our veterans, especially at gatherings like this on Veterans Day and Memorial Day. And while their feelings are sincere, it is important to remember that veterans are defending us 365 days a year. The heroism that has been demonstrated time and again by veterans, from American Revolution to the global war on terrorism, is sometimes unnoticed by those of us who enjoy the security that their sacrifice has provided. Army Staff Sergeant Clinton Ramesha has seen war at its very worst. While serving at Combat Outpost Keating in Afghanistan, he and his comrades awakened to an attack by an enemy estimated at 300, fighting on October 3rd, 2009. According to his Medal of Honor citation, Staff Sergeant Ramesha took out an enemy machine gun team and engaged in taking out a second when he received shrapnel wounds from a rocket-propelled grenade. He continued to fight on. He killed at least 3 other Taliban fighters and directed air support to destroy 30 other enemy fighters. After receiving the nation's highest military medal, Staff Sergeant Ramesha said he felt conflicted. The joy, he said, comes from recognition of us doing our jobs as soldiers on distant battlefields, but is countered by the constant reminder of the loss of our battle buddies, my battle buddies, my soldiers, my friends. Staff Sergeant Ramesha's attitude is not hard to find among the living Medal of Honor recipients. They will never forget the sacrifice of their friends, and neither will the Gold Star families who will have to cope without the embrace of their loved ones. The innocence of their grieving children will be challenged by the dramatic change affecting the balance of security and comfort in their family routine. The hearts of these families will feel the sharp sting of their loss, leaving them only with memories of their loving mom or dad. Life, as they have known it, will be much harder from now on. Our debt to these heroes can never be repaid, but our gratitude and respect must last forever. For many veterans, our nation was important enough to endure long separations from their families, miss the births of their children, freeze in sub-zero temperatures, bake in wild jungles, lose limbs, and far too often lose their lives. Military spouses have had to endure career interruptions, frequent changes of address, and a disproportionate share of parental responsibilities. The children often had to deal with changes in school, separation from friends, and hardest of all, the uncertainty of whether or not mom or dad will live through the next combat tour. Warriors need advocates, and that is why the American Legion exists. We are here to serve veterans, their families, our communities. Veterans need each other, but more importantly, our country needs our veterans. You cannot fight a war without veterans. And while the utopian idea of a society without war is appealing, let us not forget that war has liberated slaves, stopped genocide, and toppled terrorists. Stephen Ambrose once wrote, "America's wars have been like rungs on a ladder, by which it rose to greatness. No other country has triumphed so long, so consistently, or on such a vast scale through the force of arms." It has been often said that without our veterans, Americans would be speaking Russian, German, or perhaps Chinese. Regardless of which view of alternative history you take, we do know that without our veterans, America would not be America. And as we look at the Middle East today, we know that there is a large, dangerous, and committed group of fanatics that want us dead. And while ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and other terrorists may lack the conventional weapons of Nazi Germany or Imperial Japan, they are every bit as evil in their intentions. Those who defend us from our enemies must be supported, whether their service was in Baghdad or Beirut. We need to serve veterans as well as they serve us, even when the guns have temporarily stopped firing. The American Legion shows its support for America's heroes through its Family Support Network, Legacy Scholarship Fund, Operation Comfort Warriors, temporary financial assistance, and the National Emergency Fund, just to name a few of our programs. Veterans don't ask for much. They do not want to be in a special class, but benefits are a mere drop in the bucket compared to the financial and human cost of war. And while not all veterans see war, all who serve in the military have expressed a willingness to fight if called to. You can show your support for these great men and women by hiring a veteran in your workplace, visiting a VA hospital, or donating to a war program. Companies should understand that it's smart business to hire veterans. When members of the Guard and Reserve deploy, it is American businesses to ensure that their civilian careers do not suffer. Homelessness is another issue that affects veterans disproportionately. Too often, today's tattered citizen of the street was yesterday's toast of the town in a crisp uniform with rows of shiny medals. This is hardly the thanks of a grateful nation. We can do better, and we must do better. Historians have said that Dwight Eisenhower was prouder of being a soldier than he was of being the president. And while relatively few veterans ever reached the rank of general, pride in one's military service is a bond shared by nearly all who have served. This pride is on display on every obituary page in the country where military service, regardless of how many decades have passed and subsequent achievements reached, is mentioned with the death notice of nearly every deceased veteran. Can any CEO or distinguished Ivy League graduate truly claim to have more responsibility than the 21-year-old squad leader walking point on patrol in Afghanistan? Fewer than 10% of Americans can claim the title veteran. Far less than 1% of our population is currently defending us in the global war on terror, and yet many seem intent on trying to balance the federal budget by diminishing the quality of life programs designed for the family who have already disproportionately made these sacrifices. Veterans have given us freedom, security, and the greatest nation on earth. It is impossible to put a price on that. We must remember them. We must appreciate them. God bless you all for being here. God bless our veterans, and God bless America. Ladies and gentlemen, every year the American Legion posts an annual speech that it recommends to be read. And to do that, I would like to call up our next speaker. He used to be the commander of one of our American Legion posts. And this individual is a Vietnam veteran who's put in over 23 years of military service to our country, reaching the high rank of Master Sergeant. Ladies and gentlemen, American Legion, member Paul Pouliot.
Military service, by its nature, is temporary. The legacy of that service, however, can benefit generations for centuries. Veterans Day can be traced to the armistice which ended World War I. Though the peace of that treaty did not survive the fascist tyranny of Hitler and Mussolini, the freedom enjoyed by the Europeans today is the result of the service and sacrifice made by millions of American veterans. It is the legacy of those who have worn the uniform of the United States, a legacy of freedom. It is a legacy that has spread the globe. First Lieutenant Ralph Puckett, Jr. was commanding officer of the 8th Ranger Company, U.S. Army, outnumbered and seriously wounded twice by the enemy in Yusan, Korea. During a 2-day battle in 1950, he continued to lead his company of Rangers through machine gun fire in order to capture the objectives and direct artillery. When his wounds prevented him from moving, he told his soldiers to leave him behind so they could withdraw. Despite his objectives, his soldiers dragged him from the hill to a position of safety. Lieutenant Puckett would survive the battle and eventually retire from the Army as a colonel in 1971. Even his legacy, a lengthy military career, was temporary when compared to the legacy that still continues in Korea. Without the sacrifice of veterans, including Colonel Puckett, freedom and democracy we enjoy today couldn't have blossomed in Korea. South Korea President Moon Jae-in said earlier this year during the White House ceremony in which Colonel Puckett received his well-deserved Medal of Honor from President Biden. Another distinguished hero, the late Admiral Jeremiah Denton, spoke of the long but temporary ordeal he experienced as a prisoner of war in Vietnam. If I had known when I was shot down that I would be more than 7 years, I would have died or dispensary of despair, but I didn't. It was 1 minute at a time, 1 hour, 1 week, and 1 year, and so on. If you look at it like that, anybody can do anything, unquote. That type of toughness, commitment, and perseverance is not unusual among veterans. Their exploits are legendary. After Harriet Tubman led hundreds of slaves to freedom through the Underground Railroad, she served as a cook, nurse, and spy for the Union Army during the Civil War. Frederick W. Smith served 2 tours as a Marine in Vietnam before launching a Federal Express network, a company that would grow into $84 billion global enterprise. Baseball great Jackie Robinson, surgeon Michael McBakery, and computer scientist Grace Hopper were other Americans who contributed to culture and society reach far beyond the military services. Even so, can any CEO who cultural icon truly claim to have greater responsibility than a platoon commander leading a team in combat? For these young people, a bad day at work does not mean a blown account or a business. It can mean watching a best friend die, losing a limb, or being immersed in the collateral suffering that is synonymous with war. Even veterans who have not experienced combat share a bond with those who have. They have all expressed a willingness to die for their country, if called upon. They have all subjected themselves to a military justice system which requires strict obedience and professionalism. And they have all pledged loyalty to the United States Constitution. In the book, Walk in My Combat Boots, by James Patterson and Matt Eversman, the authors interviewed veterans of various eras and published their accounts. Navy Reservist Ryan Lee spoke of the rivalry as well as the bond. While on active duty, he felt a sense of dread in 2007 when he was approached by a Marine Vietnam veteran in a bar. He is going to give me crap about being a Navy guy, Lee recalled in the book. Lee, who had not seen combat, was surprised when the Vietnam vet, instead thanked him. When he asked why, the Vietnam vet says, "You guys saved my life more times than I can count. I can't tell you the amount of times we would have been dead, but we were able to pick up the phone, and you guys came in and got everyone out." Lee would later use that moment to mentor others. Listen, you're not pulling the trigger, you're not doing what you see in the movies, but most people aren't. He would tell his people what you're doing by keeping a reactor up, getting that F-18 off the flight deck. You're literally saving people's lives. You're only 1 or 2 degrees away from physically saving someone's life. So have a little bit more onus and understanding and pride in what you do. We in American Legion welcome and encourage conversations such as these among veterans, and we do, let me tell you. We call them buddy checks. We remind all veterans that service matters. We remind them that their well-being matters, especially to us. Most importantly, we offer our friendship and assistance. Through that friendship, the American Legion has made suicide prevention among veterans its top priority. Buddy checks are one tool, but we must also do whatever it takes to encourage veterans to seek help from the Department of Veterans Affairs or other trained professionals. We must remove all stigmas associated with asking for help or being diagnosed with PTSD, depression, or any condition that could lead one to take his or her own life. Follow up and ensure that veterans that you encounter know that you are an ally and can be counted on for your support. You can also show your support for these great men and women by hiring a veteran in your workplace, patronizing a veteran-owned business, or donating to a veterans program, and you can simply thank them for their service. For many veterans, our nation was important enough to endure long separations from their families, miss the births of their children, freeze in sub-zero temperatures, bake in wild jungles, lose limbs, and far too often lose their lives. Military spouses have had to endure career interruptions, frequent changes of address, and a disproportionate share of parental responsibilities. The American Legion will continue to fight for those that are no longer here to do it themselves. We will continue to protect the dignity and honor by lending our support and advocating for all veterans. Thank you for gathering today. God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you very much, Paul. Ladies and gentlemen, when terrorists from the Al-Qaeda network struck, hijacking 4 commercial airline flights, they used them as manned cruise missiles, killing more than 3,000 people in New York City, Washington, D.C., and Somerset County, Pennsylvania. Members of the Massachusetts 102nd Fighter Wing scrambled 2 F-15 Eagles in response. On that day, while reports were still coming in, alerting of the hijackings, amidst the initial chaos and confusion, the Massachusetts Air National Guard was the nation's first military response to New York City on that horrific day. Once Lieutenant Colonel Tim Duffy and Major Dan Nash of the 102nd were in their aircraft, they were in the sky within 6 minutes, heading towards New York City, 153 miles away. By law and tradition, the Guard connects local communities to the federal government. Units are located in every American community, and they have the responsibilities, legal authority, and structure to respond to attacks on our homeland. The National Guard is a unique branch of the U.S. military, and it has been both state and federal responsibilities. The Guard routinely responds to domestic emergencies, such as national disasters, and has repeatedly supported military operations overseas. While most Americans are aware of the nation's Guard's valiant contributions on domestic missions, perhaps the most significant contribution the Guard makes is on the field of battle. To honor their service, our guest speaker this Veterans Day is one of these valiant souls. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium Colonel Kenneth P. Wisniewski III of the Massachusetts National Guard.
Thank you, Ben. Good morning, everybody. Mayor, other elected officials, veterans, friends, supporters, choir, Girl Scouts, I really appreciate all of you being here today. It's nice for me to be here as well. I lived in Attleboro about 20 years ago before I moved to Lakeville. Got married here at St. John's Church and still own some property and have some ties to this wonderful community. As Ben said, my name's Ken Wisniewski. I'm a colonel in the Massachusetts Army National Guard, and I'm the chief of the Joint Staff for the Massachusetts National Guard. In this capacity, I do a lot of the things that Ben described in terms of domestic responses to Boston Marathon bombings, so any type of terrorism, any type of natural disaster, storms, hurricanes. That's what we do in the domestic department here. For the next 3 or 4 minutes, Ben asked me to include in my address to all of you the reasons that I joined the military when I was 17, 28 years ago. My grandfather was my primary inspiration. He was a decorated World War II veteran. He served 40 years in the National Guard. But really, it was as a young kid, I remember taking rides with him, going various places, but inevitably we'd seem to always stop off and meet one of his Army cronies, one of his old friends that long since retired. And I couldn't put my finger on it at the time, but there was a unique bond, a special camaraderie, maybe even a type of confidence that I didn't necessarily see in a lot of other interactions. So at that young age, I knew there was something special there. There was that bond that you've heard alluded to in a couple of the speeches today. I sensed that, and I wanted that for myself. I also joined because I believed in my country. I love the country. I wanted adventure too. I saw some of you might on TV commercials, the obstacle course for basic training. I wanted to do some stuff like that. So definitely that was part of it. But really I wanted to join something bigger than myself, and I wanted to connect in a way that I couldn't really describe at the time, but that I saw my grandfather connect. And it was absolutely one of the best things that I ever did. So I agree with the mayor. I'd highly encourage our younger people to find a way to get involved, and it can be part-time like me, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, or it can be full-time. I also want to say, I know that Veterans Day is a solemn day, and it's a time to reflect on what veterans have done. But I'd really be remiss if I didn't thank all of you out there that are here supporting the veterans. Post 9/11, most of us went overseas, some multiple times, Iraq, Afghanistan. The support that we had from the nation, from veterans organizations, from civilians, it's really overwhelming. Matter of fact, it's up to the point sometimes where we're going out to lunch or breakfast and we're in uniform where we want to change first because people try to buy us breakfast, lunch, just very, very kind, all the thank yous. So it's overwhelming. It really makes me proud of the support. I couldn't ask for more support from the community and the populace. So again, I know this is Veterans Day, but as a veteran, I'm so proud of the people here and the people that continuously thank us in uniform. So I appreciate that. And lastly, let me just finish up by saying sometimes in the media you see or hear some different one-offs about this person in the military or this general said or did this, but I can assure you, somebody that's served, been all around the world, served with every branch, been in 28 years, that the service members, you can rest assured that the service members in this nation are highly disciplined, they are well-trained, they are prepared to fight and to win our nation's conflict. And also rest assured that that 4-page parchment document that we all swore an oath to, that's the Constitution of the United States, is still very alive and well within all of us. Happy Veterans Day, and God bless.
Thank you, Colonel. Now, as a salute to the democracy we have shed so much blood to defend, I now want to call to the podium some more of our elected officials. This first individual has always been a friend of the post. You can always find him down at the American Legion, VFW meetings, He's a local guy, and he's always, grabbing me and saying, hey, how things going? What can I do for you? And so without ado, I'd like to bring up to the podium our state representative here for the City of Attleboro, Representative Jim Hawkins.
Thank you, Ben. This is an honor. It's been a few years now that I've spoken at this event, and I always consider it an honor. I grew up, and I was in high school during the Vietnam War, so I've always had incredible respect and gratitude for our veterans who have sacrificed so much for all of us, and that goes without saying. But since I've been an elected official, I've had occasion to go to, as Ben said, the local posts and meet the local veterans and get to know them. And for me, it's a breath of fresh air in my day. It's a group of friends who are respectful of each other, maybe tease each other a little bit, but in a respectful way, and there's no egos there. They're people who've already proved what they had needed to prove, and for me, it's a breath of fresh air to spend time with the local veterans. But in the last year, it's meant even more to me, to my association with the two veterans posts, in that they have come out in such a way with hospitality and generosity and care during the pandemic, when so many people were suffering food insecurity and so on, have come out of the woodwork with their hospitality and their generosity to be part of the community. It's not a surprise to me, because I could have described them that way before this happened, but since then it's reinforced to me that this is a wonderful group of people in our community, and we owe them our respect, our loyalty, and everything we can. So thank you very much for letting me speak.
The cornerstone of any democracy is the peaceful transition of power through our electoral system, something we've demonstrated to the world for quite some time now. We just recently had a local election, and I'd like now to call to the podium a member of our legislative branch of government here in Attleboro. He is a member of our city council, and again, a great friend of veterans and our organization here, Councilman Waterman.
Thank you very much. And I have to tell you, I have really enjoyed being able to chair the Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee, which we established in City Council in the past 2 years. And so all veterans business goes through our committee. I see Peter Blair here too. He serves as the vice chair of this committee. And Sarah Reynolds, our Ward 1 city councilor, she is also on that committee. And it's a way for the city council to really try to help address the concerns and the issues that exist, and I think it's going well. I thought today I'd like to just say a word about joining the military to serve. I believe is a true calling. The man who raised me, who was my stepfather, he just had his birthday, so bear with me. He's very strong in my memory. Was a Marine, a sergeant, served in the tanks, and was in the South Pacific in many of the invasions. I think he was in Guadalcanal. He wouldn't talk about it much. My family, my brothers, and I, and everybody that I knew in my hometown in Connecticut where I grew up, called him the Sarge. And he taught me something about the meaning of service. And while I was in school during Vietnam and was not able to serve there, I learned an awful lot from him about serving. In my case, I ended up being a social worker in the inner city of Boston, and I like to think I served my way there. But even before I go back to the time where I first learned what it meant to serve our country, however we may serve it, because not all of us go into the service, but we all love our country and we find ways to serve. And I remember when I was 11 years old, no, I think I was 10. I was 10. It was the 1962 inauguration. John F. Kennedy was being inaugurated that January morning. And that's the first time I realized how important it is to serve our country. And before I read a few of his words from that speech, I'd like all the veterans here to think about what was that moment when you knew you were called to serve. Because I believe that each one of us has that moment. So let me share these few words that really stood out that I heard that day that have been in my mind really the rest of my life. And that very cold January morning in Washington, D.C., John F. Kennedy ended his inauguration speech by saying these words. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man. And finally, whether you are citizens of America or citizens of the world, ask of us here the same high standards of strength and sacrifice which we ask of you. With a good conscience, our only sure reward, with history the final judge of our deeds, let us go forth to lead the land we love, asking his blessing and his help, but knowing that here on earth, God's work must truly be our own. So ask not what America will do for you, but what we can do for our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ty. At this point in time, I want to, as we did last year, conduct a ringing of a bell known as the Bells of Peace. The Bells of Peace is a U.S. national bell tolling remembrance that was created in collaboration with the Society of the Honor Guard, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, to commemorate the 103rd year anniversary of the World War I armistice, signed on November 11th, 1918. The world had never seen such killing. Between 15 million and 19 million people died during World War I, and another 23 million were wounded. Bells burst forth in joyous chimes, began one story in a London newspaper. Big Ben in Westminster tolled long and loud, and its ringing was copied in belfries around the city. In Paris, people took to the streets with joy and relief. The bells of Paris rang out, and people in the city from around the world cheered the end of the fighting that claimed so many. In New York City, the armistice was at 6 a.m., but New Yorkers still took to the streets. Again, the bells of the city's great houses of worship rang out, and people flocked into the streets. The same thing occurred across the United States. The Office of Veteran Services here in Attleboro would like to continue this noble tradition. If able, would you stand and join us in a remembrance of all those that gave everything as we toll our bell 21 times. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, that's Vietnam veteran Marty Clapp. We are now going to have a couple of members of our post deliver to us a wreath. The laying of wreaths is an integral part of many remembrance services and highlights the functional and commemorative roles of war memorials. The symbolism of wreaths has been used at funerals since at least the time of ancient Greece to represent a circle of eternal life. The laying of wreaths allows individuals and organizations to pay their respects and lay a tribute to individuals and groups. A veteran's wreath is a symbol of honor, respect, and victory. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to finish this ceremony in a manner befitting of all those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice and service to our nation. We will do this with the VFW Honor Guard and Bishop Fiennes High School's very own band teacher. The three-gun salute. A gun salutes for military occasions are traced to early warriors who demonstrated their peaceful intentions by placing their weapons in a position that rendered them ineffective. The tradition of rendering a salute by cannon originated in the 14th century as firearms and cannons came into use. The firing of 3 volleys over the grave of a fallen warrior has its origins in the old custom of halting the fighting to remove the dead from the battlefield. Once the dead were removed, 3 musket volleys were fired as a signal that the battle could resume. The playing of taps. Congress designated taps as the nation's official song of remembrance in the 2013 Defense Authorization Act. A bugler plays taps every evening at Arlington National Cemetery to signify the end of the day and as a salute and a tribute to those who've died for their country. The words that accompany taps marry sleep with death in a beautiful metaphor that must offer some comfort to the grief-stricken families of fallen heroes. And a part of it reads, "Day is done, gone the sun. From the hills, from the lake, from the skies. All is well, safely rest. God is nigh. Go to sleep, peaceful sleep. May the soldier or sailor God keep."
Hey, fire. At the ready. Lock and load. Hey, fire. At the ready. Lock and load. Hey, fire. Present arms.
Members of the military, present arms. I will close this event with the wise words of veteran and President Ronald Reagan. We're surrounded today by the dead of our wars. We owe them a debt we can never repay. All we can do is remember them and what they did and why they had to be brave for us. All we can do is try to see that other young men never have to join them. Today, as never before, we must pledge to remember the things that will continue the peace. Today, as never before, we must pray for God's help in broadening and deepening the peace we enjoy. Thank you. God bless you all, and God bless America.